Yallery Brown. What I'm about to tell you happened on a farm in Suffolk 150 years ago. It was a time before modern farm machinery, tractors, combined harvesters and such, when all the work was done by men and horses. It was back-breaking work that began at dawn and didn't cease until sunset. This particular farm was close to a small village. The muddy road ran down from the farm to the village, and this muddy road ran around an ancient wood. It would have been far quicker for anyone going from the farm to the village, or the village to the farm, to cut straight through the wood and not go the long way by the muddy road. But no one ever did. Everyone in the village knew that in the very middle of the wood was an ancient grove, a circle of trees open to the sky where the old folk once worshipped. And in the centre of that clearing was a flat stone slab. That stone slab, it was said, was the fairies' dancing floor. And from tiny children, all the villagers were taught never to go into the woods, never to go anywhere near the grove and the fairies' dancing floor. Tom was a boy of 16 years old, who worked at the farm by the woods. Tom's mother lived in the village, but because his working hours were so long, Tom lived on the farm with all the other lads, and he worked every day from dawn till sunset, grooming the huge horses that pulled the ploughs and the carts, unblocking the drains and ditches that kept the wet land dry enough to farm, and mending the broken fences. It was hard, horrible work, and Tom hated every minute of it. The only day of the week that Tom didn't dread was Sunday. That was the only day he had off, and it was the day when he went to the village to visit his mother, and she would cook him a lovely Sunday lunch. One Sunday, Tom went to his mother's cottage, and as usual, there was a delicious meal of mutton and vegetable stew, with a big steamed suet pudding to follow. After lunch they both sat down to rest in the chairs, each side of the chimney breast, and they both fell fast asleep. Tom was so tired after a hard week's work that he didn't wake up until he heard the church bells ringing to call the villagers to evensong. "Oh no," groaned Tom, jumping to his feet. "That must mean it's nearly 6 o'clock. And if I'm not back at the farm by 6, at the very latest, the farmer will hit me with his big, heavy stick." "Oh no," thought Tom. "That means it's 6, and I'm going to catch it. It's going to take me at least another 10 minutes to get back to the farm along the lane. I'll be late for certain, unless... He looked across at the dark woods. Whatever in the woods can't be worse than the farmer and his big, heavy stick, thought Tom. He ducked under the trees and ran into the woods. Now, of course, because no one had been in those woods for over 200 years, there were no pathways trodden between the trees. Twisted branches clutched at Tom's sleeves and tugged like small hands at the legs of his trousers as he ran. Thin twigs scratched at his face like sharp nails on little hands. He ran on until he arrived at an open grove of ancient oak trees at the very heart of the woods. And there, as the story is told, in the middle of the circle of trees, was the stone slab. "Help! Help!" It was a child's voice crying out. Tom stopped and looked around, but there was no sign of anyone. "Help! Help!" cried the child again. Tom realized that the voice was coming from underneath the stone. "Help! Please help!" begged the tiny voice. "I only lifted up the stone to look underneath, and while I was looking, it slipped and fell on me. It's so dark under here, and I'm so frightened. Won't someone please help?" Without a moment's thought, poor, kind-hearted Tom ran over to the stone slab. He eased his fingers into the soft, soft soil around the slab, and he heaved with all his strength. He lifted the stone just enough to let out a brightly light. Tom stood back. It was a will-o'-the-wisp. "I'm Yallery Brown." And then he began to sing. "Work as you will, you never do well. Work as you might, you never get out. For harm and bad luck in Yallery Brown, you've let yourself out from under the stone." Now, that song alone should have made Tom take to his heels and run as fast as he could out of the woods. But Tom was so astonished that he stood there just gawping like a great booby. "Tom, my boy, you've done me a great service," said Yallery Brown when he had tired of singing. "I've gone under that stone for 200 years now, and now you've come and let me out, and I'm grateful, Tom, very grateful. You've done me a good turn, Tom, so I'll do you one in return. I'll grant you a wish, and yes, anything you want, Tom. You only have to wish for it, and it's yours." "I'm sensing that you don't like work, Tom, eh?" said sly old Yallery Brown, quick as a flash. "Well, that's what I can help. Just say the word, Tom, and all your work is done. What more could you wish for?" Tom knew at once that that was what he wanted most in all the world. No more work. "Yes," cried Tom. "Yes, that's what I want. I wish for you to do all my work." "Then—" And Yallery Brown slipped away into the trees singing. "Work as you will, you never do well. Work as you might, you never get out. For harm and bad luck in Yallery Brown, you've let yourself up from under the stone." Tom ran all the way through the woods, back to the farm, all the way back until he was dreading the beating he was sure to get from the farmer. But when he got back to the farm, his luck seemed to have changed already. The farmer had gone to church, and he hadn't noticed that Tom was late back. Next morning, Tom was up at dawn as usual. He staggered out of the farmhouse, bleary-eyed and yawning, and made his way down to the stables to start grooming the great cart horse. But when Tom got to the stall, his mouth fell open with astonishment. The horse was groomed till its broad back gleamed like polished mahogany, and its tail and mane had been plaited with ribbons as if it was going to the county show. Tom ran from the stables to the ditch at the bottom of the west field. Unblocking the ditch and mending the fence were his next jobs. But when Tom arrived, the ditch was clear, and the fence was so skillfully mended, you couldn't tell which parts had fallen down. Next day, and the day after, and the day after that, Tom went out to work and found that all his work had been done for him by Yallery Brown. By the end of the week, Tom didn't even bother to get out of bed anymore. He knew his work was done, and done better than he could do it, so why bother to get up? That's when things started to go bad for the other farmhands. While Tom lay in bed, Yallery Brown did all his work, but he wrecked the work of the other lads as well. While Tom's horse was groomed and gleaming, the other horses the lads had to care for were lame, and their coats smeared with muck. The fences Tom had to mend were perfectly patched, but the fences the other lads mended collapsed. Tom's drains and ditches were clear, but the other lads' ditches were full of weeds, mud, and rubbish. It didn't take long for the lads to work out what must be happening. Tom lay in bed every day until noon, so someone or something was doing all his work and wrecking theirs. It was witchcraft. They knew what to do. Next morning, Tom was woken at dawn by a stick hitting him across the shoulders. "Get up, witch boy!" shouted a voice. There was another blow across his back, even harder. Tom looked up. The other lads were all around his bed. They started chanting, "Witch boy, witch boy!" Tom jumped out of bed, and the other lads laid into him with their sticks. all freshly cut from the rowan tree which grew at the top of the west field. Tom ran from the room, holding his arms over his head to keep the blows off of him. The farm lads drove him down the stairs, through the kitchen and into the farmyard. "Stop!" pleaded Tom. "It wasn't me!" But the lads kept beating him with their sticks and chanting, "Witch boy, witch boy!" Tom ran across the farmyard with the lads after him. "Run, witch boy!" they shouted, "and never come back!" And so, to escape all the hitting and the shouting, Tom ran into the woods. The lads stopped. They weren't going to follow him into the woods. Every one of them knew that evil lurked in the woods. So much the better if Tom came to a bad end in the woods. They all agreed, satisfied with their morning's work. The farm lads shouldered their sticks and began slowly to walk back. There was a sudden silence in the wood. Even the birds stopped their twittering. "What did you say?" asked Yallery Brown, very quiet and menacing. "I said, I'll thank you never to help me ever again." "Oh dear, Tom, I must say one thing. You should never thank me. And now you have. I must go, and you'll never see me again, Tom. But someone will come in my place, Tom, and you'll wish they hadn't. By thanking me, Tom, you've set me free, and that means the balance is gone between our two worlds. I'm free, and now there's an empty place beneath the stone. I must go now, Tom, but listen, they are coming. They are coming." Tom listened, but all he could hear was a rustling like the wind in the dry leaves. No, wait a moment. Tom strained his ears. Now it sounded more like tiny footsteps. Tom tried to stand up, but tiny fingers clutched at his arms and legs, pinning him to the ground. Tom tried to pull away, but the tiny hands were too many and too strong. Slowly, Tom was dragged backwards across the forest floor towards the old stone slab. Turning his head, Tom saw that the stone slab was raised up. He let out a piercing cry as the tiny hands dragged beneath the stone. His scream cut off as the terrible darkness crashed down on top of him.